start the recording now. So again, welcome everyone. It's really lovely to see the familiar faces. We will get started today. We're going to have some mindfulness meditation, which Annette Marlow will be doing. And last time we trialled having Amelia Twiss, one of our psychologists, on board to give us some tips during lockdown and got some really positive feedback. So we've invited Amelia Twiss along and she's going to be talking about EQ during lockdown. If anyone has any feedback or anything they want to say, please let us know in the chat. Again, we'll unmute everybody at the end and encourage any sort of conversation, but for the moment we'll have the mindfulness and then some tips there. I'm just seeing lots of lovely faces pop up on the screen, and it's just a really nice welcome everybody. So I think Annette will get started because we've got a pretty full program there. So again, put your view on speaker view and I'll introduce and let Annette, put myself on mute and let Annette continue. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
So welcome everyone. I can still see there's a couple of people tuning on. However, we will just have a quick little introduction before we get started with our mindful meditation today. And we've sort of put a theme around today, and the theme around it is based on one of the core principles that we teach in mindful meditation, and that is learning to accept, or at least to acknowledge, whatever we observe and experience when we're focusing in the present moment. So sometimes when we come and sit down to do our meditation, we might feel a bit agitated or it's not comfortable. And stopping to do a meditation isn't always easy. Sometimes we experience discomfort when we sit with ourselves, and it might be a physical pain that you feel that's a discomfort. It might be a flood of emotions that suddenly overwhelm you when you sit down. It might be a barrage of thoughts that are racing around in your mind, and that can make it challenging to sit still. So what I am trying to emphasize today is that when we come into a mindful meditation practice, we're simply inviting ourselves to notice whatever we find, acknowledge it, and allow it to be there. So sometimes if we just slow down our breath, or we breathe into the sensation of where we're experiencing the discomfort, it can soften the intensity or lessen the grip that it perhaps may have over you. And when we learn to tolerate or accept uncomfortable sensations or feelings, it means that we also let go of judging what we find, and we let go of reacting to what we find, and we're not trying to change what we find or suppress what we find. The practice of accepting or acknowledging what we find is also part of this constant changing dynamic of emotions and sensations that we all experience, which is part of our human experience. So in the midst of this pandemic, we can all do with a bigger dose of being a little kinder to ourselves and others by accepting whatever we're experiencing, and also expecting that our sensations or emotions are perhaps a little more heightened than usual, and that it is okay to feel the discomfort. So in our meditation today, I invite you to take a more gentle approach to yourself and just seeing if you can acknowledge and allow whatever comes into your awareness, trying not to fight it or suppress it, but simply allowing it to be there and breathe with it. So why don't we begin? I think everyone's here now. So let's all make sure perhaps that your distractions are off, and just begin to take a few moments to settle into the chair that you're seated on. I like to begin by taking a few purposeful breaths, almost like a sigh out, and as you breathe out, you're sort of allowing a sense of a wave of relaxation to come over you. So taking a deep breath in to begin, And an exhale to feel perhaps your shoulders begin to relax, the muscles around your face softening, feeling your sit bones grounded on the chair, and making sure you're in a nice elongated, have a nice elongated spine, in an upright and open posture. And if you're comfortable to close down your eyes, I invite you to do so. And perhaps just giving yourself permission to allow yourself the next 10 minutes to embrace each moment of mindfulness, no matter what you feel. Awake, alert, calm, present, finding stillness. And just allowing your attention now to turn to any sounds that you may hear outside, just simply listening. And then any sounds that you may hear inside of your room. Simply listening and bringing a gentle curiosity, allowing the sounds to come and go. And now opening your awareness to your breath. Beginning to notice the sensation of air as it passes in through your nostrils when you breathe in, and the sensation of air leaving your nostrils as you breathe out. Or perhaps you prefer to simply notice the rise and fall of your belly. Feeling your belly expand as you breathe in and gently fall and soften as you breathe out. Listening and following each breath, moment to moment, breath by breath. Cultivating a willingness to simply hold on to this present moment awareness. Making space for anything that arises, open, without expectation, without judgment. If you notice that your mind has wandered off somewhere else, remember that it's not unusual. Just in the same way that it's not unusual to experience discomfort or boredom or impatience. Just seeing if you can allow whatever occurs and perhaps even befriend whatever experience arises. Even bringing a sense of enjoying the sensation of breathing. Sometimes just simply lifting the corners of your mouth and like a little smile lessens the intensity and actually can feel good. And now I invite you to bring your awareness to your center. This is known as the feeling line of your body. And with a willingness to notice any body sensations, just begin by bringing your awareness into your throat, feeling in and around your throat, exploring any sensations that you may find there. They might be so subtle, perhaps strong, or maybe you can't notice anything at all, which is fine as well. Just resting your attention in and around your throat. And as you do that, also feel in the background the ebb and flow of your breath. And now bringing your attention to the center of your chest. Again, feeling for any sensations that you may notice there. You may notice a pressure, a tightness, a resistance to your breath, or perhaps it feels soft, comfortable. As you explore the small or large sensations around your chest and heart space, also feel the flow of your breathing. And now bringing your awareness to your upper belly, also known as your solar plexus, observing anything that you may notice there, a softness, a shakiness, a numbness. And then moving down now into your lower belly area, in and around your navel, noticing any sensations there. No need to analyze what the cause of the sensations may be or judging them, just simply noticing. And then opening your awareness now to include the whole of your feeling line. A little of your throat, chest, solar plexus, lower belly. Feeling whatever sensations or feelings accompany with curiosity, compassion, and just sitting with whatever you find there. And as we come towards the end of this meditation, allow your breathing to become a little stronger and begin to reactivate your body parts, perhaps by wiggling your fingers and toes, taking a stretch overhead, reaching your arms up, and just taking a moment to perhaps reflect on what you just experienced in that meditation, what you noticed, how you felt. Perhaps there was resistance there, or sleepiness, or boredom. And knowing that these are all perfectly normal responses when we try and sit and pause to be with our body and mind. So congratulations everyone for coming along today, and I will be here at the end of the session to discuss or answer any questions or concerns. But meanwhile, I'll hand you over to Amelia, who will continue taking us through our session. Thanks, Amelia.
Thanks, Annette. I notice at the end of that, I'm feeling kind of sleepy today. And I think that's maybe an indication of a little bit of lockdown fatigue that's showing up for me right now. So we're going to talk a little bit about EQ during lockdown. So emotional intelligence during lockdown, and we're going to be building on some of these themes that Annette has been talking about: how to acknowledge and accept and work with our emotions rather than resisting them or judging them. And we're all going through quite a challenging time at the moment, and working effectively with our emotions can help us to manage our well-being and also to take care of our relationships. So I just wanted to take a moment and connect with each other on the call, and beginning by just connecting with where you are right now. You might be in your home office, or your home office kitchen table, or your home office garage, whatever version of office you've got at the moment. And if you're living with other people, just acknowledge their presence around you. And if you're living alone, just thinking about the people in your life and where they are right now. And just becoming aware of the other people on the call. At the moment, they're little faces in little boxes, but just getting a sense of where they might be dialing in from. Different locations across Melbourne that perhaps you've forgotten even existed at the moment. Perhaps they're dialing in from a bit further away. And getting a sense of the space that the others on the call are occupying. And you might even be able to get a little glimpse of where they are in their videos. And as we connect to where we are and we connect to each other, I just invite you to start thinking about how you're feeling during this stage 4 lockdown, how we're all feeling during this lockdown. And Dori, if you can move over to the next slide. Here's an image that I found that really resonated with how I've been feeling at the moment. Kind of like living in some other universe that somehow feels very, very normal, but also quite confusing on some level. So hopefully some of you will enjoy that picture, and perhaps some of you can really resonate with that as well, or you might be having a completely different experience so far. So just moving to the next slide, please, Dori. Building a little bit on that idea of our lockdown experience, some of us are getting probably quite proficient at lockdown life now. Stage 4 restrictions in Melbourne, though, are really, unprecedented. We've never experienced anything like this. We all have to be at home by 8 p.m. and we can't go out and visit with people and get around town that we're used to doing. And this is really quite a suppressive experience. So just thinking about when you first heard that we were moving into the stage 4 lockdown, and looking back on your experience over the past couple of weeks of being in lockdown, and at the same time looking forward into the next few weeks, just take a moment and maybe even to note down on a piece of paper if you've got some paper with you, or just find a word in your mind to define how you're feeling today about being in lockdown. And see if you're able to define your emotion in just one or a few words. Or like me, you might have an image. Okay, so next slide, please, Dori. What I'm asking you to do here is just acknowledge your feelings. So really just identifying what is it that I'm feeling and acknowledging that it's there. And many of us are actually quite disconnected from how we're feeling a lot of the time. And some of us might be really good at actually actively avoiding how we're feeling. We might do this by working too much, having too many activities on the go. And this can actually take a lot of energy to avoid feeling your feelings. And there are other people who maybe over-identify with how they're feeling, and they can get really stuck in an emotional experience. And healthy emotions, they rise and fall, they come and go. Learning how to experience your feelings with curiosity, openness, and acceptance is a great way to become more skillful with your emotions. And these are the sorts of skills that Annette has been teaching everyone with the mindfulness practice over the last few weeks. So now that we've acknowledged how we're feeling, the next step, next slide please, Dori, is to accept your feelings. So when we think so much all the time, we love to make judgments on our feelings. So for example, we might notice that we're feeling sad, and then we start feeling sad about the fact that we're feeling sad. Or maybe we're feeling a bit anxious, and then we start getting annoyed at ourselves for feeling anxious. Mindfulness is really about being aware of what's happening in the present, moment by moment, without making any judgments about what you notice. And it's these judgments about our own emotional experiences that can cause us quite a bit of this distress. So for example, you know, this experience is really horrible, or I can't stand it anymore, are judgments that can help us or can contribute to us feeling quite distressed. So learning to accept your emotions without judging them can really help you to live a much more fulfilling life. Another benefit of acknowledging it and accepting how you're feeling is this can help you to identify what you might need in any given moment. So for example, if you notice that you're feeling really sad, this might be an indication that you need connection. Or if you've been noticing that you've been feeling really anxious, this might indicate that you need to create a sense of safety for yourself. So what we're doing here is really starting to connect with our emotions at that really deep level and learning how to work with them. So Dori, if you can pass on to the next slide. And hopefully this diagram will be pretty easy to follow. I know there's quite a lot of information on it here. But this is kind of putting down in a diagram everything that we've been talking about. So what the aim here is, of course, is to improve our own well-being and also to help us to create deeper connections with other people. And you'll see here in this model, it mentions 8 basic emotions. There's different models of emotions. Some might say there are 5 emotions, others say there are 7. But essentially, there are basic emotions that are consistent across all different cultures throughout the world. And with this particular model, the 8 basic emotions are sadness, shame, disgust, anger, fear, surprise, excitement, and love. And what this model also does is highlight what we call the action tendency of an emotion and how this relates to activation of our autonomic nervous system. So an action tendency really just means how we behave in response to the emotion. So you can see the emotions, I said left or right, but I'm not sure what you can see as left and right over there. The emotions on the sadness side of the diagram tend to create an action tendency or a behavioural response of moving away from others. So that's the flight, the fright, the freeze response. And then the emotions on the other side of the diagram, the excitement, the joy, the love and the trust create the action tendency of moving towards others. So creating connection and enabling creativity. So this is really just to give you some examples of how different emotions can cause us to behave. And building on the insights that we get from mindfulness practices, we can start to identify what we're feeling and how that might be impacting the way that we're behaving at any given time. So, for example, if we're feeling sad, we might notice that what we're actually doing is withdrawing. Or if we're feeling angry, we might get a bit argumentative or try to fight with people. And then at the other end of the scale, if you're feeling joy, you're probably going to be demonstrating a sense of satisfaction and creativity and happiness. So this is probably quite a lot of complex information in a way, but hopefully presented as simply as possible. But essentially what I'm trying to say here is that our emotional experience is on a certain level quite simple. You know, we've just talked about there's really only 8 basic emotions that we might experience, but it's also quite automated. So from studying how the brain works, we know that our brain has already prepared ourselves for action well before we've even realised we're having an emotion or a feeling. So really what I mean by that is your emotions are energy in motion. So starting to get a sense of where your emotion might be sitting on, you know, this particular diagram and how you're behaving at a particular time can help you to start to improve your well-being and also start to put things in place to help you to create a greater sense of connection with people in your life. So we'll just flip over to the last slide there, Dori. And this is a resource, you can Google this, Atlas of Emotions. It's really interesting, a really nicely designed website. Basically, it builds on this idea of what are these basic emotions that exist across people, how do these emotions change and intensify, and what is the action tendency of these emotions. So if understanding how your emotions work is something that you're interested in, I recommend having a look at that website just to dig a little bit deeper into some of these topics.